Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to the Bold Moves podcast. I am the host, Mandy Mucci, and this is episode number 33. On Mondays, I like to do an interview with someone who has stepped outside of his or her comfort zone and has changed the world, or at least their world, in the process. Last week, Monday, I chatted with Roseanne and Madeline Stewart. Roseanne is Madeline's mom, and Madeline is the very first professional model with Down syndrome. And they shared about how not only did they change the modeling industry by increasing the diversity, which is often criticized, but also changing the worlds of giving hope to people who have disabilities and feel isolated and not cared for. This is such an encouraging move for them because it shows you that you can really do anything that you put your mind to, whether you have a disability or not. This week is a completely different type of motivation. If you have ever dreamt of working from your laptop by the beach while you're traveling the world, I have the perfect person for you to listen to. Meet Avery Breyer, who quit her stable, steady job that paid very well to travel the world as a digital nomad with her husband and her 2 children. She makes over $60 an hour, has written 4 books, and is traveling the world, investing in real estate, and has all of her needs met. Now, most of my interviews tend to have a fluffy, emotional, you can do it encouragement type of thing, which is fantastic, and I think the world needs more of that. But sometimes people want to know exactly how you can do it, and that is what happens in this episode. Of course, stay tuned for the end because there is a giveaway like all of my interview episodes. And without further ado, here is Avery Breyer. All right. Hello, everyone. I am with a woman with many hats. She is a traveler. She is an author. She is a freelancer. Her name is Avery Breyer. And you know that you're on the Bold Moves podcast. So we're here to talk about bold moves you've made that have affected your life positively, as well as the lives of other people around you, I'm sure. So let's hear your story and a summary of those bold moves.
Okay, so I guess about 2.5 years ago, I was a pretty normal person. I worked a normal job like normal people. I had my kids that I'd shuttled to and from school, and I worked part-time when my husband, he worked full-time. I worked part-time when he was off work, so we didn't need to worry about daycare and whatever. Mm-hmm. Typical suburban life. And then what happened was this all kind of started a few years ago before that, because I've been reading these blogs of families who've been traveling long term, and I thought, oh, I really want to do that so bad. But the trick was how to figure out how to do it, because my job, my husband's job, they were the kind of jobs where you have to be actually physically there. There was no option for this remote work people would talk about, or I didn't even see a way to sell our skills that we use with our work online. So anyways, my plan for the longest time was that we'll wait till we get 4 weeks holidays a year. And then once we have our 4 weeks holidays a year, we're going some longer trips, like maybe to Asia or Europe or New Zealand. And that was on my list. We even applied to immigrate to New Zealand at one point, but that's a whole nother story. Okay. So we went and we finally got our 4 weeks holiday. We went on this glorious 4-week trip. This one wasn't very adventurous. It was just Hawaii, but it was great because it was way cheaper than 2 weeks, because the rental car was cheaper when you rate by the month than by the week. The accommodations were way cheaper because you got a monthly rate instead of the weekly rate. So all that was really good, right? So I got a taste of that. I thought, well, this is fabulous. Okay, so next year's trip, we're going to save up. We're going to go to New Zealand or maybe Asia. We're going to do something really cool. So we get back from our trip and his boss says, you're never doing that again. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So it turned out that it was too stressful for them with my husband gone for a 4-week chunk. So his boss said, well, you can go for a week or 2 and break it up throughout the year, but there's no way you can go for like 4 weeks. That's just not going to work. So I was like, okay, well, going to Asia or anywhere far doesn't appeal to me for 2 weeks, because by the time you spend 2 days on each end of travel, plus adjusting to jet lag on both ends of your trip, I was like, no, that's just not going to work. So I tend to be pretty persistent. So I thought, well, okay, screw that. There's got to be another way to get what I want. And I thought, the conservative plan was we'd be normal and just work and wait for our real estate to be paid off and then retire when that's paid off in 20 or 30 years, which is a conservative estimation. Mm-hmm. And then, by the time I'm 65, my husband will be a little older than me, we can go and travel then and go gallivanting around. But I thought, what? There's that guy that I grew up with in school who died already. Poof, like just crazy thing went wrong and that's it, he's gone. There's another friend who knew her husband at 45, freak heart attack, killed him, boom, he's gone. So I was like, there is no freaking guarantee that we're even be here. We probably will, but there's no guarantee, right? So I didn't want to just depend on that. So I've been fiddling around with some ways to earn money online and whatever else. Nothing was really working super well. I had this niche website and it was making me a profit, but it was certainly nothing that was going to be life-changing or let alone support us. So I joined this community, and this community I've been part of, they've been talking about SEO writing. And so I started dabbling in that, and I was actually quite shocked because it was completely out of my comfort zone, because it was not based on having a degree first and these credentials. It was just literally telling people, I can do this for you, will you pay me? And the fact that it actually worked and I could actually earn a living from it just like that, just by proving my worth based on what I could do, showing them, as opposed to showing them a bunch of paperwork that I'd studied X, Y, Z, was really, was life-changing, frankly, because it let me know that there was another way, that I didn't have to be locked into this job. So so we decided, we had rental properties by that point. That was one of the biggest roadblocks for us, because we've been managing it ourselves up until that point. And I know if I do it myself, I have vacancy rate near zero. Our expenses are very reasonable, because there's, we're not handy by any means, but I can paint. My husband can do the odd faucet repair. If not, we call a plumber for most of them. Like we can do a few little simple things or whatever. But we decided, okay, well, if we're going away, we have to hire a property manager. Mm-hmm. And when you own, like I read a gazillion, before we started investing, I read every book I could get my hands on real estate investing, because I was trying to pick out nuggets that I might be able to apply to my situation. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them talk about, just hire a property manager, like it's easy peasy. But what they're forgetting is, if you're rich already and you have like 100 houses, or you have 2 big apartment blocks that are worth millions, well, yeah, then it's easy to find a property manager. There's a bazillion of them no matter where you live. But if you're a small time landlord where you own just a handful of properties, there's a lot less to choose from. And odds are, you're going to have a choice between crappy ones that don't do a good job, or versus the expensive one that does, which is the one we ended up having to go with, because I need somebody I can trust. Sure. So we ended up finding a property manager, so that solved that problem. And then, we used Air Miles reward points, not Air Miles brand, a different brand, but anyways, we use these reward miles points to fly business class from North America to Asia and back twice. And that got us there and back, and we could still come home and visit family and stuff like that. And then I just kept working on the SEO writing, and then I started self-publishing books on Amazon, because I have a hard time just doing one thing. Part of it is that I don't like to have all my eggs in one basket. I like backup plans, just in case one thing doesn't work out. I did the SEO writing. And then the other part of it too was that I couldn't see myself. I thought, if I'm going to do SEO writing like 8 hours a day, five days a week, mm-hmm. that's going to feel a lot like work, because it's the same thing. Like every job has these routine things that you do over and over, and that's what it's going to turn into. So I was like, that was another reason I didn't want to do it full time. So I started doing the Amazon publishing to have some variety, and then doing a course on how I do the freelance writing. And now, so I'm just trying to like feel my way to find all these different things. And so been doing that while traveling, and then homeschooling the kids, which was a whole nother can of worms, because we weren't expecting to homeschool. I thought I was going to be a normal mom who sends her kids to school. So homeschooling was like a whole nother thing. And that's kind of it, my long rambling way of telling you my general overview.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go back and ask a few questions about different points along the way in the overview. Yeah. So first, I guess, where are you guys from, and what were you and your husband doing when you were living the normal life, so to speak, as you said?
Yeah, we're from Canada, and so that's another part of this. We don't have anywhere tropical. I'm very jealous of my U.S. neighbors to the south who have a choice of like Florida, California, Hawaii. You guys are so lucky. And we have nothing like that. So anyways, so I'm trying to find somewhere tropical. I have my heart set on tropical by the ocean to retire to. Okay. And so, we're from there, and I worked in healthcare. My husband, he did accounting, and that's what we did for a living. And so what we did was not conducive to travel at all. So we had to come up with something else.
Oh, well, I think as jealous as you were of us Americans, Canada was pretty attractive about a month ago.
Yeah, I know.
I guess a month ago from our interview. It'll be
Yeah.
more than that by the time this posts, but I believe the immigration website.
I heard about that. That was so crazy.
Yeah, it got so flooded that it wouldn't even work on November 8th. So you may have beaches, but you have a gorgeous prime minister who is
Yeah,
not
so I hear.
insane. But not to get, I guess, overly political on
I
here.
know, you never know who's listening.
Yes, exactly. But so he was an accountant, you were in healthcare, and you can't do accounting remotely? Or
Well, he didn't see an easy path to turning that into a business. I mean, now that I've been dabbling in this longer, I can kind of see how, okay, yeah, I mean, I guess he could have started like some kind of a service that he could do remotely or whatever for small businesses or whatever. But I think, again, because not coming, like, we weren't entrepreneurs. That's not what our training was. We only knew what our parents did, which was they got jobs, they got their, whether it was a certificate from a community college or university, they got jobs, and then they work those jobs, and their employer gives them a paycheck. They don't have to put too much thought into strategy, landing clients, or any of that business. So yeah, I think that wasn't something that came natural to either of us, including him, even though we can imagine how maybe that could, his in particular, how it maybe could have been turned into something to do remotely. We didn't see landing clients was the biggest thing. We thought, how the heck is he going to land clients? Who's he even going to approach? Like, I think it's something every freelancer struggles with, figuring out, well, who's going to want what you're offering, and how do you get them to hire you instead of the guy or girl they already have or doing it themselves,
Right, absolutely. So then what is he doing now?
He's been actually doing some graphic design work on the side because he's really artistic, and that's been his kind of dream. So we've both kind of gone after more of our dream side of what we want to do, as opposed to the practical side of what we used to do.
That's awesome. That's part of the whole point of the podcast, is to have people who have done that kind of say what helped them do that, so that those who are listening can, follow their dreams as well, because you're another prime example that it's absolutely possible.
Well, yeah, and so many people think it's not too, because I think the online space is so crowded with scam artists and liars, and it's got such a bad reputation that there's so many scams for earning a living online or whatever. And I think anybody that wants to do it has to recognize that while that is true, not everybody's lying their faces off. There are some that actually do know something that they can maybe help you with, or help you get to where you want to go, because there are still a lot of good people out there, even though there might also be the other kind.
Yeah, absolutely. So then I want to go to another, I like the idea. One thing that's fantastic about having so many different guests, one every week, is that everyone has something completely different to bring to the table, both from what, area of employment they're in, as well as their approach to how they got there. And a lot of the times, I think, mostly because I started with interviewing my friends and just people who are similar to me, I got really into the habit of the more emotional support, confidence building aspect of doing it. But I really like that you are talking about more of the nuts and bolts and actual how to. And actually, one of my best friends is like, that story was really cool, but he never really explained exactly how he did that. But you gave, okay, we have this real estate investments, we have, the self-publishing, we have the SEO writing, and now the graphic design as well. So I want to talk just a little bit more about the real estate part, because I think that was what sort of started you on the path, aside from loving your month in Hawaii.
Yeah.
So you read a lot of books, and then tell us, how you got to where you are now in that regard.
Okay, so how that kind of began is, in my family, my mom's side, they all have had real estate to some extent that's more than just the house or the home that they live in. So my great-grandmother, she lived in a duplex, and so she is like my great-grandfather had passed away before I was born, so I never knew him. So all I ever knew, my great-grandmother living in her duplex. It was an older neighborhood, and she rented the upstairs suite to another single lady her age or whatever. And so for years she had this lady living upstairs, and We knew her name and who she was. I might have met her once or twice, but as a little kid, that wasn't the detail. I was more curious if my great grandmother had cookies like she always did. Yeah, and so she had that. And then my grandparents on my mom's side, they're both only children. And so when their parents passed away, of course, in their estate, they had paid off homes, which were given to my grandparents. Rather than sell those houses, my grandparents kept them and they rented it out. On top of that all, my grandparents also built a duplex. And so the upper level, they rented out. So that gave them income. So they had that income from their rentals. The downside, though, not with my great-grandmother, I never heard much about the financial part of it, but with my grandparents, I know they're a little bit loosey-goosey with how they manage it, which was great for their tenants because, if they were 6 months behind with rent, my grandparents were very patient, and they'd wait, and they'd eventually get their money, and everything would be fine. But because they didn't need the money, they didn't have to worry about it because these houses were paid off. So their tenant came upon hard times and couldn't pay for 6 months. They'd kind of say, okay, do you have it this month? Do you have it? Oh, I'll have it next week. Oh, I'll have it next week. Next month, payday, I'll pay you. And my grandparents could afford to be really understanding because they didn't need the money. And for what I hear, they always got paid in the end, but it was sporadic sometimes.
Okay.
And so then my parents, they also bought rental properties. They weren't quite as loosey-goosey as my grandparents were with it. They were more business-like with it. But they weren't as strict about it as, say, a professional property management company might be. So my husband and I, after I graduated with my degree, we got into an apartment for 2 years. And the lady that managed it, I referred to her, well, when we saw the place, she was all super sweet and very friendly and nice, which makes sense because at that point, I guess she's a saleswoman to sell the apartment to us, essentially, to get us to live there. But once we moved in, the very first day, I'm expecting this super nice, friendly person. She turned into the dragon lady. That's what I thought of her as, the dragon lady. It wasn't actually bad. It was more that the warmth that she had initially was gone. She was more like, okay, this is what we need you to do. And she gives the rent on time, make sure you pay this on time, and make sure, if you do X, Y, Z, remember that'll come out of your damage deposit, She really laid down all the rules. So she was in business mode. So It's not that she was being mean or anything. She totally wasn't. It's just, I'm the kind of person, I like it when people are all warm and friendly and smiling and And she was like, all business. The smiling woman that was there before we see it was gone. So I was like, whoa. She means business. Okay, well, no problem. Like we'll pay on time. We'll be really cool about taking care of it. There's no problem. But also, I guess because it was our first apartment, we'd never lived out of our parents' homes before. So I guess maybe she thought we were going to be some irresponsible young adult that was going to live it up. And really, that wasn't our style. So anyways, within a couple of years, she warmed up to us because she saw we always paid on time. Everything was clean, So then she was back to being the friendly lady. But I thought of her as dragon lady because she was all business that first time. Not though, because I thought, okay, well, that makes me, because she was so businesslike and she made it so clear that what her expectations were, which were perfectly fair. I mean, she wasn't being unfair to us in any way. It was just like I said, I like warm, friendly, bubbly people. And I guess she felt she couldn't be that way because maybe she worried she'd get walked all over if she did. Who knows? So I get it. So then I knew I wanted to invest in real estate because of my parents, what it had done for them, and my grandparents, my great-grandmother, but I wanted to do it with a few tweaks. Number one, I didn't want to have to use all my own money because I didn't want to, I like my lifestyle like it was. I mean, I had a good paying job. My husband did decently. I liked my conveniences. I liked to be able to go out and not have to watch every penny. I'd done that in university, where I watched every penny. I had to be so careful. And I was okay, well now, I'm living the good life. I have a good paying job, blah, blah, blah. The clouds have parted. Things are easier. But I didn't want to have to suffer too much to save for retirement. So I read tons of books that talked about you could buy with no money down, blah, blah, blah. And so I thought, okay, well, let's try this. So after we had our first baby, I guess he was about 6 months old at that point. And again, me being restless, I love being home with my kids, but I'm not just a mom. I've got all these other interests too, right? So I was like, I want something to sink my teeth into. So how about real estate? Because I want to own a certain, $1 million worth by the time I'm 40. That's what I want, because if I have that much worth, then by the time I'm 60 or 65, it'll be worth enough that I can retire and I'm free and clear. So now the question is how to get that with as little as my own money as possible. So the books all say, that you can buy no money down, blah, 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 and all this other stuff. And so I thought, okay. So we went to the bank and I asked them, I said, okay, the books say you can do this. Can I actually buy with no money down? Like, is that possible? Now, because the house we lived in was paid off, it turns out that we could. So I was like, seriously? Okay. And to my surprise, rather than look at me like I was some kind of irresponsible jerk for daring to ask, they were very happy to help me. I was like, oh, wow, this is a revelation. Because it was outside my comfort zone, because I was used to the traditional, you put, your 20 or 25% down payment and you pay it off, lickety split, and done deal. So this notion of no money down, it felt a little, I don't know, just a little not as, I don't know what the word for it is. It just didn't feel comfortable to me, though, in the sense to ask for that. Sure. So I got over that. We got it. So we bought a condo. And then after that, a year later, we bought another condo doing similar. And then I guess it was maybe a couple years later, I'd have to check my bank records, so don't hold me to that 2 years thing. But anyways, then we bought 2 houses doing the exact same thing again. And so it worked out very well. Just like the book said, it was true. You could actually do this. I was like, oh, well, that's very cool. So it's not that you don't spend any of your own money. I mean, there's still like closing costs and legal fees. And where I live, there's land transfer taxes you have to pay, which is a percentage, so we use cash for that. But yeah, it's possible to do. So once we had this real estate, then it was just a matter of making sure there's enough cash flowing in every month to make the mortgage payments, and your tenants are essentially paying off your mortgage. Right. So as long as you can manage it, you get good people in there and keep your, expenses such that everything will work out, then yeah, you fast forward 20 or 30 years, you have a retirement fund built up and you didn't have to struggle so hard to do it. Not that it's not work. I mean, it's not for everybody, but for me, it was easier than doing the traditional stock market thing or whatever, because I don't understand stocks, frankly. And my husband, with his accounting training, he's like, yeah, realistically, to know if a company's solid, you got to read their financial statements. You got to really dig deep. And how many of us are even qualified to do that? Right. Frankly, right? So a lot of times when we're investing, I kind of feel like it's a bit of a crapshoot. Like you kind of hope. I mean, we invested in Facebook stock. We invested in Apple stock. That was one of our rare forays into investment. And those did well, but those felt okay because I knew everyone and their mother was on Facebook. Apple, everyone I know has a MacBook. They're buying iPhones. They're using iTunes. So I thought, this is not a company that's unpopular, so odds are it'll probably go. But is that an accountant's way of figuring it out? No, that was ultimately it was still a gamble, right? Like we could have lost whatever we put in there, and we didn't. So we were lucky. But real estate feels more solid to me. Like it's pretty dependable. If you look at any market, any in the world, almost always, if you hang on to it for 20 years minimum, it'll be worth more than what you paid for it when you sell. And if your tenants paid it off for you, all the better.
Absolutely. That makes complete sense. And I can see even too, just at the bare most basic, having a tangible item that you can go stand in versus looking at a chart seems a lot safer to me too. So I could see where you're coming from there. So since you do so many different things, and I can definitely identify with you there, and I don't know how much of my background you know, but I am primarily a makeup artist for TV commercials and, more production type things. And then I do some online health coaching and I do a little bit of modeling as well. And so I am totally with you on, if you're doing the same thing every day, then it's like you may as well work for somebody else or have a job. So I love the freedom. I love that, I don't need to have an awesome attention span and I can do a different job today than I did yesterday.
Exactly. It's fun that way.
Yeah. And at the risk of maybe not being the number one makeup artist in the world because I, don't do it every single day, but to me, the trade-off is worth it as well. But with that in mind, this question might be a little bit tougher since you're doing a few things, but maybe you do have it figured out. But I always am curious if people know what their purpose is. So do you know your purpose? And if so, what would you say it is?
Sometimes I think, have you ever watched Star Trek?
The movies I've seen.
Okay. So you know how Vulcans are like super logical and whatever. And I'm not trying to say that as in like patting myself on the back or anything, but just that I always feel like when it comes to life, I'm somewhat the purpose of life? I ask myself that sometimes. I'm like, and I honestly have no clue. I have no clue. I was raised in a mainstream religion family, and so I have that side of it, what it's supposed to be. But to be honest, no, I have no clue what my purpose is. I have no friggin' clue. I do not know. I kind of see life as, I'm just going to try to do the best I can to have a good one, and to try to make those that interact with me have a good interaction. Their life is better for having talked to me as opposed to worse. Like some people walk around grouchy or snarly or whatever. I don't want to be that person that makes cashier cry at the grocery store or whatever, you know what I mean? So I feel like, I guess my purpose is to do as little harm as possible and hopefully have a nice life in the process. But some people have a much more, I don't know, a more spiritual way of putting it, or a deeper meaning. I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. I don't know.
That's, I think, totally fine. And I think it's brave to just be like, you know what? I have no idea. I'm just trying to navigate and enjoy it on the way. So that absolutely works. It's always so interesting to hear the response. And there's some people too where I'm like, oh, they totally have their purpose down pat. And then they say the same thing. They're like, well, I don't really know. And I think as long as you're not making cashiers cry, then you're probably on the right track.
Yeah, that comes to mind because one of my first jobs ever as a cashier, and this guy came through with his son. He made me cry, and I was like a high school student. I was so mortified that I'd cried in public because nobody likes to have that ugly crying face in public.
Sure.
It's just not fun. And so anyways, small story. Not a good day at work, that one.
I think everyone should work in some sort of service aspect. I think it should be required just so that people know what the other foot feels like, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Everyone should be a server at a restaurant or work in customer service or something customer facing so that they can consider that before they're a jerk.
Oh, hell yeah. Even before they sent an email this morning, I woke up to one. I don't get many of these. They are rare, but this dude, I'm changing my emails over to another provider, and I'd emailed everyone to say, hey, like some of mine haven't opened an email from me in months. I'm like, well, it could be that in their browser, they're just like reading it, but they're not clicking to open it or clicking to display images. So my email provider thinks they're not opening it, but maybe they actually are reading them. So I don't want to port over a bunch of people that are maybe lost in the reason they signed up in the first place. So I just sent an email. If you want to stay on board, click here and my little tracker will figure it out and move you over. And if you don't, here you can unsubscribe, no hard feelings. Well, this one dude, he's swearing his face off and he's all like insulting and he was mean. I was like, whoa, man, like, what did I do to you? Like, I don't know, like, it's like the whole cashier cry thing. I didn't cry, I'm older now, so I don't cry over that stuff anymore. But yeah, it's interesting though, how some people are very, angry.
Yeah, I go back and forth on that one. Sometimes I'm like, wow, I really feel sorry for that person that an email was able to, set off such a tirade of terrible emotions. And then other times I'm like, maybe I should envy those people because obviously the biggest problem in their day is this email that, just really sent them out of control and obviously a bit bigger things to worry about. So I'm like, maybe but I think it's probably more the former than the latter.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for that gentleman.
Yes. I think he's having a bad day. But anyways, hopefully it gets better, whatever it is.
Yeah, sir, if you're listening.
Yeah, if you hear this, smile. What you said was very mean, but I hope you have a better day.
Right, there you go. So when you're doing things like going into the bank and saying, hey, can I actually, not put any money down and buy a house or condo, or, you're moving to a different part of the country, or even about to send an email to your list that might be a little nervous making. What do you do when you're scared to push through the fear?
That's a tough one. It's been a work in progress because like for my life, I've always been what I call myself an approval junkie. I know how to do the school thing, right? Get A's, get A pluses. You get pat on back. Everyone's like, yeah, good job. So I know how to play the traditional game where you do the traditional path, where you listen, pay attention in school, have everyone's going to think you're wonderful. Listen to your parents, everyone's going to think you're wonderful. Go to university, get a degree, get good grades, everyone's going to think you're wonderful. Do a good job at work, do what your boss says, they're all going to think you're wonderful. And so I know how to do that. But the whole, the things that are not so obvious, that's harder. Like, so going to push through that, I think for me, the easiest way for me to do it is I got to find somebody that's done it before me, and I got to know that they did it and it worked, and that gives me the guts to try it. Because if I hadn't read all those books with the no money down business, I wouldn't have had the guts to ask the bank. I would have done it the way my parents did. I would have saved up a down payment for every single property. I would have cut down my expenses big time, cut out the little luxuries I was enjoying and treating myself to after the lean years in university. And I would have done it that way, but yet because I did it the other way, it made my life easier. Yeah, there's risk that comes with that, which is a whole nother discussion. But I have to find somebody that's done it before me is what I think it is. And even emailing me my list every time I'll be honest, every time I email them, I'm like, I hope they like this. I hope this is helpful. Because you're always, I'm definitely not in the zone yet where everything is comfortable for me yet when it comes to, say, emailing my list. I totally feel out of my comfort zone every time. The only thing that gives me any confidence whatsoever is, I've taken courses on it. I've taken this and that and seen other people say, I did this and this is how that went. And people seem to like this kind of stuff. They don't like this kind of stuff. So I take all that in and I'm like, that gives me, I think that's what gives me the ability to do it anyways. Knowing someone else did it, how did they do it, how did it turn out, and then I can try to make that work for me.
That's awesome. So success leaves clues, you study those clues, and then use the path already formed.
Exactly.
That's an intelligent way to go. What do you think is the scariest thing you've ever done? I know you travel a lot. I don't know if you're an adventurous traveler, jumping.
I've always been a wannabe adventurous traveler. Like when I was a kid, I wanted to be a world explorer. And then it occurred to me that the world had been explored already. So there wasn't going to be a queen who was going to fund my ship to go off and explore somewhere. So too bad, so sad for me. So I wanted to be, but I didn't see a practical way to be it. So I think for me, the scariest thing, honestly, was quitting my job to go work for myself and travel, because I had plan A, B, C, D. Like I really gave a lot of thought to, okay, worst case, if our rentals go to crap and the run into the ground by the property manager or a tenant's turn on us when we're gone or something, I don't know. Like I can't control other people. How am I going to handle that? What will my life look like, and how am I going to make it? Because I can't let anything bad break me. So for me, I have to plan for the thing that might break me and how I will handle it so that it doesn't. So for me, the quitting job to travel is a big one though, because there are a lot more things that could go wrong compared to doing the traditional safe path, and also I know my parents, for example, thought we were insane. My brother thought we were crazy. One of my sisters said, I always knew you'd do something like this, but she meant it as a compliment. Some family was like totally like, they were very concerned, like it was out of love, but they were very concerned because to them this was a huge risk. So for me, that was really hard because again, I'm a approval junkie. You don't get pat on the back for quitting your job and taking your kids to developing countries to go travel and homeschool them. You don't get pats on the back for that. People are like worried, and we had a lot of questions about it from people. And because to me, I'd spent so much time planning about it and thinking plan A, B, C, D, I no longer had any questions about it because I'd already figured out all the worst case scenarios, how we would minimize the risk of those worst case scenarios. Like before we go somewhere, I already know where the nearest JCI accredited hospital is. Like I know where I'm going to go, like I planned that. I planned the homeschooling, everything. So for me, it was all okay. But in their heads, it wasn't because they hadn't done that yet. Okay. So then I have to explain it. And I often felt a bit defensive, which in a way is irrational because of course they're going to ask questions like any sane person would that cares about you. But, it's kind of hard when you personally thought it all through already to have to now explain that to someone else and And they're not asking like, oh, that's going to be so great. And what are you going to do about that? And they're like smiling and happy. They're asking like more, they're very, very serious when they're asking. And so, it's not out of excitement, and that's tough. Yeah.
I can see that for sure. Now, as an approval junkie, as you describe yourself, is it difficult for you to not use your university degree? Do you have a hard time ever feeling like maybe you wasted your time doing that? Or, being a freelancer too, you don't always get the same recognition that you might get if you, like you said, do what your boss says, make a boss happy, everyone thinks you're wonderful. Do you ever struggle with that?
Yeah, because before what I did, well, yes and no. On the one hand, before what I did for a living, it was a kind of job that was pretty well respected, and people respected the hard work you had to do to get there, for sure. But
what was it? I know you said it was the medical field, but what was your job?
I was a pharmacist. You're the first person I'd ever told that to. Yeah. On an interview like this. There you go. So that's what I did for a living. And so people respected it, and they respected the work you went into. So that was good. But when I made the choice to stop being that, I knew being a writer, especially ghostwriting, like I always say, it's not sexy. It's not exciting. Nobody dreams of being a ghostwriter to write a 500-word article on how to floss your teeth. Nobody dreams of that. So when I grow up, that's what I want to be, right? So it's not that, but it's a means to an end. It gives me freedom that I couldn't get from the other. I couldn't get that from the other. So I'm comfortable with the choice. It's purely a means to an end. I couldn't do the other way, so I had to do something else. And most people think it's cool that we meet. And I think the other thing too is we kind of seek out other people that are doing what we're doing, will understand. Because I don't, like when we're traveling, I've learned I kind of avoid people just on vacation, because inevitably the question comes up, well, what about your kids?
Yeah.
Concerned look, as if we're maybe irresponsible parents. And I hate that. So I'm just like, I don't have the patience to answer those questions. I'm okay with answering them all for my family, because they love us. But a random stranger who maybe just wants to feel better about themselves, to think someone else is doing such a worse job of being a parent, I'm like, no, I haven't. So I avoid that. But, we've been able to find lots of other families that do what we do, and other people that are like-minded. And so I don't even know how I got on this topic, to be honest with you. I started rambling a little bit, but
growing, it's valuable. So,
but it's, I don't know. It's been fine. I'm comfortable with the choice. It is what it is. I know certain people aren't going to think much of it. I love the vacation. That's how I got on this topic. The vacation people, they're not going to be, oh, that's so cool what you do. Some are, but a lot of them I've learned are like, the concern, oh, kids, and they and I'm just like, oh, I have no patience. I don't want to explain to you. I will out of politeness, but afterwards I'm like, oh my God, there's another one. But whereas the traveling people or digital nomad community or entrepreneur communities, they're much more open to not doing the traditional thing. Right. So from people in those communities, you get, people are just curious and open, and, they treat you like a normal person, as opposed to somebody who's like lost their mind and gone off and done this crazy thing. So,
well, as unsexy as writing a 500-word article about flossing your teeth might be, doing so on your laptop and you're in Playa del Carmen.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty sexy. Can't be too mad at that. I've never been there, but it sounds beautiful. Pictures, very lovely. So we're talking about kids a little bit. One of my favorite questions to ask is, if 8-year-old Avery, who I guess wanted to be a world explorer, could see you now with a crystal ball or something, on a scale of 1 to 11, how excited would she be to see where you are now?
Oh, I think she'd be very, very excited. And it's funny because I always think back, a lot of people think kids don't know what they want. They think that kids are too young to know what they want. And, kids are bloody smart. They know, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I just mean, I look at my own kids and other kids and the stuff they say they want to do. And I kind of trust them to know what they want, because the stuff I wanted to do when I was a kid, I wanted to live in a tropical place, ocean, beach. I'm 40. that hasn't gone away. The fact that I lived in the middle of the landlocked prairies where it goes to -40 in the winter didn't make me go, oh yeah, I think I like living here. I don't want to, no, I still wanted to go. Like I knew what I wanted. I knew I wanted to see the world. I knew I wanted to travel. Back then, it's just a matter of logistics sometimes that I think stop a lot of us from pursuing the things we wanted to do since we were kids.
Sure.
Then we grow up and we think it's not realistic, so we give up on it or whatever. But yeah, so I think 8-year-old Avery would be very, very happy to see what's happened. You know, I always wanted to get married. I always wanted to have kids. I wanted to travel. I wanted to be on the beach. I've got those things. So I'm happy. Yeah, I think it's turned out good.
So 11?
What's that?
11 on the scale of 1 to 11?
Yeah.
I love that.
It's a lot of work. I always tell people it's a lot of work. Like people, when we first left, I think a lot of people even back home, they thought, oh, they're going to be like just chilling on the beach and sightseeing and whatever. And I think people underestimate the work though that goes into it too. Because, and I only say that because I want people watching and listening, not that there's something wrong with them, because it's so hard. It is hard. It is totally hard. Just like when I was in university for 6 years, that was bloody hard too. That sucked. I'd be a little colorful expressing exactly how much it sucked if I weren't, you know, doing a public thing. But anyways, no, it really sucked. And so when you're building a business, there's a lot of parts of that suck and are a lot of hard work. But, you know, I think for anyone, you just got to weigh, okay, well, what are my choices? I've got option A, B, C. Pick the lesser evil, the one that will make you the happiest, and overall, taking all things into account. And go for it. But I don't think anyone should ever think that there's something wrong with them or what they're doing just because it's hard. Because I think anybody I know that's ever built a business, they have to work really, really hard to get there. And it wasn't easy and it wasn't overnight, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great tip. And to a point you made just before that about, you know, kids and knowing what they want, I mean, obviously there's a lack of advanced logic when a kid's deciding what he or she wants, but at the same time there's an equal lack that lends itself better to knowing what you want, which is not having the input of society and what will people think if I do this playing into it. It's just like, no, this is purely exactly what I want, and that's all a kid knows. So that's awesome. And it's awesome that not only are you, you know, looking back on yourself and reflecting, but that you're also, you know, letting your kids have that autonomy and say, and like, you know, I want this.
Yeah.
I love that.
If my teeth start looking like they're chattering, don't mind me. Somebody crank the air conditioning in this place and I'm freaking freezing. So don't mind me if I start to like,
I will try to speed it up so that you can.
No, it's okay.
Okay. So then you gave a lot of tips and great value. And like I said, I really appreciate the fact that, you know, in addition to giving like some of the feeling aspects of it, you're more nuts and bolts than a lot of the people I've interviewed, which is really cool. Do you have any advice for anyone just in general, life advice, or, you know, if they want to do what you do or what you're doing, advice for that you'd like to share?
Yeah, definitely. I think, expect it to be hard. There's going to be hard parts. But hard is a funny thing because I always say like it's easy, but it's hard because of the work you got to put in. You know, like a lot of things you want to do, they're not hard as in, oh, I have to figure out how to teleport from here to Indonesia. You know, it's not hard like that would be hard. It's easy in the sense that there's certain, you know, you can figure out what you need to do is easy, and what the actual steps, when you break them down, they're not hard, they're easy. But what's hard is to keep going when you don't know 100% for sure that's going to work out. So just to think that they're normal if it feels like a grind sometimes because you don't know what's going to happen. And then the other thing for me has been, I mean, some people, mind you, I mean, everybody's different. Some people are maybe good at like figuring it out and trying a million things and just figuring it out. I don't have the patience for that. I don't. I've tried it for years, and I tried like, I used to buy courses and I'd look for ones that were like $20 or $40 or $50, $100 was an expensive course for me. And I'd look for that. And I always say this is going to sound self-serving because I sell a course, but I swear to God, this is true. This is how I think. Like, it's just, I used to buy those little itty bitty courses, and inevitably they were itty bitty and inexpensive because the content in them was itty bitty. Like, they didn't put all the details. They would put the big picture stuff, but you were always left lacking in something that would stop you from accomplishing what it said. Now, again, this is me. I don't like just trying things randomly. I'd rather be more efficient about it and figure out, okay, what has worked for that person or that person or that person? How can I reverse engineer that for me? But I don't want to go and try a bunch of random stuff that doesn't work. Like, why reinvent the wheel? Like, I just don't. I'd rather maybe improve the wheel for me, but I don't want to invent it from scratch. So I started taking more in-depth courses, and that helped me a ton, to be honest, because I took even to launch my course. I spent $2,000 on a course on how to create and launch a course because I had no idea how to do it. I didn't know how to figure out what people would want and how I could be of most use to them and how I could even explain what I could do for somebody. Like I had no idea, so I took a course to learn how to do it. And also it was helpful because I had access to a coach who could tell me, okay, no, try this, just do it. I'm like, oh my God, that is not in my comfort zone at all. But if you say that's going to work, I will do it. I will put myself out there and hopefully I don't look like an idiot. But there is that fear when you're an entrepreneur, like you fear looking foolish or looking stupid or being rejected or whatever. So for me, getting courses helped me a lot with that aspect of it because I can see how someone else has done it. I can see that they have done it. So for me, it feels less risky, less scary to try it. So that's been it. And just, the work thing, the work, and be optimistic that you can do it. Cause you got to be a bit of an optimist. Cause I was watching this video Gary Vaynerchuk did once about optimism and how he wishes he could bottle it. And, that's a big thing. Cause if you don't have that optimism in you to believe that it could be possible, you're going to give up during the grind phase where everything's really hard. And so you've got to have that optimism in you that if somebody out there could do it, whatever it is you want to do, whether you want a podcast or you want to be a makeup artist or you want to be a writer or whatever, you got to believe that they could do it. They're not special. They're no more special than you are. Like if they could do it, you can do it too. You just have to figure out how they did it.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. So what is your course?
Oh, it's on the freelance writing thing. Cause I figured, I just thought if I like this thing so much, it was freaking amazing. Like how quickly, it was able to get up and running. And I do have a caveat. If somebody's writing is not up to par, it'll take longer because they got to, practice that aspect of it. But especially if someone can write, you can get it up and running super fast. And so, the course is on that. I thought other people might be interested in learning about that too. Right now, I don't have anything public because I've been wanting to refine it and learn along with students going through it to see what content is working for them and what isn't, what they need more info on. So far, the only people that know about it are those on my email list. They bought the book. They like it enough. They can sign up for my email list to find out more. And then eventually they'll hear about the course that way. So I don't have anything like on my website, like, oh, buy this course now. I don't have that because I've just been doing it on a very small scale so far.
Sure. Very cool. So speaking of your website, what is it? Where can we find you on social media? I will put all that information in the show notes as well, but
cool.
If someone's driving or something and wants to remember.
Okay. So website is averybreyer.com. So AVERYBRE. I feel like I'm in a spelling bee. YER, averybreyer.com. And so they can find me there. There's links to all my books on there. So that's like a one-stop shop to find everything. You can find me on Amazon through my website. And then Facebook, I'm pretty active on Facebook. I'm not like one of those people that post like 100 times a day or anything like that, but I'm on there more than any other social media platform. So if they go on Facebook and search for me, they can find me on there. I have a lot of public posts, and then there's a free Facebook group I have too, which again, they can find from my website. Everything's like linked to from that. So that's like one-stop shop. And Twitter, I have a Twitter account, but you'll rarely see me tweet there. So it's probably, people are diehard Twitterers. They can go on there and find me, but I'm not terribly active there, I have to admit. So
sure. And it's that at Avery Breyer?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, perfect. Speaking of your books, you've mentioned that you've written 4, is that correct?
That is right.
And what are your 4 books?
Okay, so the first one I wrote was How to Stop Living Paycheck to Paycheck. And the second one was How to Raise Your Credit Score. The third one was The Road to Wealth one. That was all about that was the fourth one, The Road to Wealth one. It was about getting rid of debt. And then there was the Turn Your Computer into a Money Machine book, which is all about the freelance SEO writing.
Very cool. Do you sell them in a bundle at all if someone wants the whole?
I should do that, but I haven't done it yet because I have to go and take all the manuscripts and format them. And then I have to come up with a cover thing. And right now that just seems like something to do.
Fair enough.
I'll be honest.
I appreciate your honesty. Now, those are obviously are books that you would recommend, of course. And
Oh yeah.
but what other books by other authors? I know you mentioned you've read a ton. So I guess for anything, you know, even if it's entertainment, if it's for help doing what you're doing, if it's, you know, good, healthy life advice, whatever you'd like, anything that's impacted you positively you'd like to share.
The books I read for entertainment, you guys won't be interested. I like post-apocalyptic fiction and science fiction and whatever. And then I read the odd trashy romance once in a while. But yeah, so you guys won't care about those. But nonfiction, let's see, real estate, I read everything I could get my hand on. I would say anybody that wants to get into it, books are a really cheap way of learning a lot. Because even if you spend like $2.99 or even if you spend $10 on a Kindle book or any book, whatever, I mean, that's dirt cheap when you consider what you can make in real estate in the long run. So it's a pretty cheap education. Like my approach is, even if you learned just one tiny nugget of info that the other 10 books you read didn't have, worth it. Sure. Give me that info. So yeah, I don't know what's out there now. I haven't read books on real estate investing in a lot of years because I've devoured them all like, I don't know, like 10 in the last 10, 15 years ago. Like in the last 5 years, there could be a bazillion better ones that have come out for all I know. But Robert Kiyosaki is like classic.
I thought of him when you were talking earlier. So yeah.
Yeah, so his books are classic. I mean, they don't go super in depth into stuff, but they're nice. They're nice to get you kind of excited about being on the right track and stuff like that. So I like them for that. The book Influence by Robert Cialdini, if anybody wants to do anything, build a business or whatever, it's just, I don't know, just like getting into the psychology stuff is kind of good. Travel, if anybody's interested in the travel aspect of things, that book Vagabonding by Rolf Potts is really good. And then just look for travel blogs for people that are doing what you want to do. And, you know, that can be like a huge inspiration and stuff like that. So
very cool. I appreciate the tips. They all sound like they would be really interesting reads, especially interesting reads if you're lying on the beach in Playa del Carmen.
Heck yeah.
I think I could manage reading just about anything.
Heck yeah.
I'm with you on the tropical locale preference.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to leave to the listeners or watchers to impart any message or anything else you'd like to add?
No, I would just say, I mean, obviously I'm biased. I think my books are helpful. Hopefully enough other people do too. If people are interested in, you know, the financial side of things, I kind of wrote the first 3 and because I want to write about real estate investing eventually. But I thought if you don't have the credit score thing and the budgeting thing and the debt thing under control, then you can't do real estate. You just can't. You got to get all those ducks in a row first. So if anybody is interested in real estate investing, eventually get their ducks in a row via that other stuff, whether it's from me or somebody else's books, whatever, but get your ducks in a row. And if somebody thinks that the SEO writing, even though it's not sexy, you know, how to floss your teeth is not exciting, but if they're interested in the home-based business part of it, you know, my book will give them a good overview about how to, you know, get into that. And yeah, I don't know. I guess that's about it. And stay optimistic and know you're going to have to work hard, brace yourself for that, but just know you're normal. There's not something wrong with you because it's hard. It's supposed to be, it's easy, but it's hard at the same time.
Sure. Simple, but not easy is what I like to say for that.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. You know exactly what to do. It's just, you got to make yourself do it and do it consistently.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Avery, for your time. I know you're not on the beach because you're sitting and talking to me in the air conditioning. So I really appreciate the sacrifice you've made.
It's okay.
And all of the lovely content and value that you've added for anyone who's listening or watching this. So thank you so much for your time.
It's been awesome talking to you.
All right. Why do I have a feeling that I'm going to start getting postcards from people who have followed in Avery's footsteps and are traveling the world doing things that they love? I am not mad at it though, especially if you invite me to visit you in your exotic locations. Anyway, hopefully you feel inspired and motivated, and you will be even more so if you stick around for Friday's episode, because I have a challenge for you from Avery that will hopefully help you get a little bit closer to your bucket list and living your dreams. Now, of course, you can check out the show notes at www.mandiem.com/episode 33, so EPISODE and then 33, but the number. And there you can see, of course, some pictures of Avery, her book covers, some of her adventures. You can see the links to the books she's written. And like I always do on my Motivational Monday interviews, there's a giveaway that goes along with this podcast, and you can win the book of your choice from Avery's collection. So check those out and enter to win that. And of course, like I said, stick around for Friday. Please make sure you share this with anyone you think would enjoy this or find this useful. And if you love me, leave me a review on iTunes, because I would love to see more reviews aside from the lonely one that's there right now. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for listening, and have a sparkly day and be bold. Bye-bye.